在第八课，我们要学习一些新的语法点。Alright, and these are grammar structure talk about time and the duration of time. This is going to be a longer video because some of these structures are quite complicated and a little bit different from what we're used to in English. So I encourage you to watch all of it. If you just want to skip around or move to a specific section, that's fine as well. All right, so the first structure is 多长时间. The second structure is 钟头, and the third and quite complicated structure is the 是的 structure, which, as you can see from the definition, is something that's a little bit different from what we're used to in English. All right, so 多长时间 is a question. Right? 多长 here is right. 多 is a question word, right? So you're going to asking how long is this period of time, and then when you answer the question, you're going to replace 多长时间 with an actual amount of time, like 2 hours or 5 months or something. So the way I would ask this is I would replace whatever the period of time is with this question phrase 多长时间. So for example, I might ask 小英，你每天练习英文练习多长时间? Notice the 多长时间 usually goes at the very end of the sentence. It goes after the verb because, and then we'll talk about this in a second. If we're talking about so-called periods or durations of time, for example, 钟头, right, which means hour, right? I can say 一个钟头, 两个钟头. I need a measure word, right? 三个钟头, 三个半钟头. 3.5 hours. That if I want to talk about I'm doing something for that period of time, I want to put that at the very end of the sentence after the verb because it's a time complement. Right? We talked about complements before. So it's a verb plus complement, a verb plus a duration of time. But you're not saying you're doing something at a specific time. Like if I say 我今天晚上请王鹏吃饭. That's saying I'm going to invite someone to do something, inviting Wang Peng to eat food at a specific time tonight. But I'm going to use a duration of time when I'm saying I'm doing something for like an hour or 2 hours, right? So I can say 你每天练习英文练习多长时间, right? So every day, how long did you practice English? And I would say I practice for a duration of time. I practice for an hour. I practice for 2 hours, 3 hours. So I would say, to answer this question, 你每天练习英文练习多长时间? I would say 我每天练习英文练习一个钟头, 两个钟头. So here time, because the duration of time is a complement. Right? It's describing how long this action took place, right? The action is practice. The verb here is 练习, practice, and then you're saying you're describing the action, you're describing how long it took. In this case, 一个钟头, 两个钟头. Note that besides 钟头, which is the word for hour we're learning today, you can also say 小时. Right? Both of these are very commonly used. 钟头 is probably a little bit more colloquial. 钟头 and 小时 can both mean hours. So I can say, instead of saying like, how long did you play ball today? 你今天打球打了多长时间? And I would say 我打了一个小时 or 两个小时 or 一个钟头两个钟头 etc. All right. So to look at the structure of time duration, all right, it's subject plus verb, we just talked about, and then plus the so-called time duration of time complement, which goes after the verb. If there's an object, you want to do the verb plus object plus verb structure. Why? Because if you remember, complements must always directly follow the verb. So you need to have the verb, not an object. The verb must be directly in front of the complement. You can also add le if it's a completed action, if it's happened in the past. This is something we'll talk about in future levels, like if you want to ask about the duration of time to the present or the duration of time in the past, etc. Just remember, like, if it's a habitual action, like 你每天练习英文练习多长时间, you don't need to use the le because it's not a completed action. If it is a completed action, like yesterday, how long did you practice English? 你昨天练习英文 right? 练习你昨天练习英文练习了多长时间 And then you would say 我昨天练习英文练习了1个钟头2个钟头 etc. All right, let's look at some more examples of time duration. Okay, Old Gao wishes to live in Shanghai for a year. Again, this is not a specific to emphasize. This is not a specific time. This is a duration of time. So it goes after the verb because it's a complement. You would say, 老高想在上海住. How long? This is the verb here. How long is he going to live there? 住1年. 我每天在书店工作多长时间呢？我每天在书店工作3个钟头。昨天下雪下了多长时间？昨天下雪下了20分钟。分钟 here means minute, right? So 20 minutes. Remember, notice this is a so-called verb plus object plus verb structure, right? The verb object 下雪下了20分钟。This is another alternative way of ordering the time duration structure. It's essentially the same. I would encourage you to just use this one. It's the most common one, the most simple one. You will also encounter this as well. So in this case, you have the duration of time, always goes after the verb, of course, but then you have this object after the duration of time, right? So you can just kind of move the object around. Let's look at an example, right? So we have this structure here. It snowed for 20 minutes yesterday, all right? And then instead of saying 昨天下雪下了20分钟, you're going to say 昨天下了20分钟雪 or 昨天下了20分钟的雪. So you just kind of move the object to the very end of the sentence. If this seems weird to you, don't worry about it. Just use this structure. This is the exact same structure that we've been practicing over years. Verb, object, verb, plus complement. Let's look at some more examples. 你上暑期班上了多长时间? And then I would say, right, I would replace 多长时间. That's the question word. I replace it with a period of time, a duration of time. 我上了4个星期的暑期班 or 我上了暑期班上了4个星期. All right. That is our time duration structure. Now, the next structure that we're going to talk about is 是的. This is a little bit of a tricky structure, so listen carefully. When do we use the 是的 structure? We have to use it when we're talking about something that already happened, something that happened in the past. We want to ask for details about the time, the place, the manner, or the initiator of action that we already know happened. All right. To put it another way, you can translate 是的 as the situation is that blah, 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 blah. It's used for emphasis, right? And it's not optional. You have to use it when you're asking for details about something. And you have to use it in a specific way. Let's look at an example first, and then we'll come back and talk about some of those details. So, first question, right? 你去过北京吗? Answer: 我去过北京. Okay, this is nothing to do with the 是的 structure yet. We're just establishing the topic under discussion, which is, of course, the fact that this person went to Beijing. So I've established the fact that something happened in the past, that person B went to Beijing. Now I want to ask for details about what happened in the past. You can think of it like an interrogation. When did you go to Beijing? How did you go to Beijing? Who did you go to Beijing with? These kinds of questions, right, asking for kind of details about a known event, is when we need to use the 是的 structure. We can translate it as the situation is that, right? So, like, oh, yes, I went to Beijing. Well, who did you go to Beijing with? Well, the situation is that I went to Beijing with my friend Leo, etc. Okay, let's look at some example answers. So A might ask, 你是跟谁一起去的? So who did you go with, right? I need to use the 是的 structure here. So we have the 是followed by this basically this entire sentence or phrase with the 的 at the very end. Now, if you remember that in the 是的 structure, the 是 is optional, right? So sometimes you'll see the structure without the 是, but so you can kind of delete the 是 here, but you always need the 的, right? So the hanging 的 at the end signifies that this is a 是的 structure, that you're talking about details, you're asking for details about a known past event. 你跟谁一起去的, right? Or 你是跟谁一起去的? And then B would also answer with the same structure, but just answering the question. 我是跟我表姐一起去的. All right, let's look at another example. When did you go? 你们是什么时候去的? Notice again, this we have the 是的 structure, and then B answers, 我们是寒假去的. All right, when did you go? What was the detail of this event? We went over winter break. Okay, third question. How did you go? 你们是怎么去的? 是的. And then B answers, 我们是坐飞机去的. All right. So, to recap, 是的 is used when you're asking about details for a past known event. You've established that this event took place and you want to kind of interrogate the other, you want to interrogate the other person and explain more about those, about the circumstances of that known action. Notice, even though it's in the past, you never use le. Why? Because you're already using the 是的 structure, which necessarily implies it already happened in the past. So you don't need to use le again, just use 是的. Do not use le, that's wrong. Okay, some notes. 是的 is used to emphasize details. It's not used to report new information, meaning that you're not talking about new topics, you're just talking about an existing topic, you're asking for like details, like who, what, when, where, why. Okay, you must use the 是的 structure. Do not use le, and very often you will not see the 是 part of the 是的 structure. All right, so you always see the 的 hanging 的 at the end, but you might not see 是. It might just be omitted or implied. All right, let's look at some more examples. New topic. 你看过这张碟吗? And the answer is 看过, right? So did you watch this DVD? Okay, now I'm going to ask for details about that question, about this topic of watching a DVD. I know you watched it. I know it happened already in the past. I'm going to ask when you watched it, where you watched it, who you watched it with, how you watched it, etc. 你是什么时候看的? 我是上个周末看的. Notice there's no 是 here because it's implied, but there is a 的 to signify it's a 是的 structure. 你吃饭了吗? Oh, new topic here. We have you eaten yet? 吃了, yes, I ate. Then I'm going to ask for some details about how or who or where or when you ate. 在哪儿吃的? 在学生餐厅吃的. Okay, that's our 是的 structure, and those are our grammar points for today. 谢谢大家的收听.